I need a husband. This night, she said, standing in the doorway of a near-empty diner at 10:47 p.m. during a Wyoming blizzard, her designer heels soaked through and her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the legal documents she shoved across my table. I'm Ethan Carter, a 32-year-old divorced lodge owner who'd spent the last 8 months learning to trust no one, especially not desperate strangers offering $50,000 for a midnight wedding. But when I saw the fear in Claire Dennison's eyes, real terror, not manipulation, and realized her corrupt cousin had 73 minutes to steal her dead grandfather's $200 million conservation legacy unless she became someone's wife before midnight, I heard myself say the words that would change everything. Then you'll have to come and live at my house. She didn't hesitate, didn't ask questions, just whispered, "Deal," like I'd offered her salvation instead of an isolated lodge 18 miles from civilization with a man she'd researched but never met. What I didn't know as we raced through the storm to wake a judge and speak vows that meant nothing was that within 3 weeks, this business arrangement would become the most real thing in my life. But here's what haunted me from that first moment. Why would a brilliant environmental lawyer with everything to lose trust, a bitter stranger with her entire future? What was she really running from besides a deadline? And why did part of me feel like I'd been waiting my whole life for someone to walk through that door and need a husband this night? Rita, the night shift waitress, stood frozen behind the counter, coffee pot in midair, staring at us like we'd both lost our minds. Maybe we had. The trucker in the corner booth was snoring through the whole thing, completely oblivious to the insanity unfolding 3 tables away. Outside, the wind screamed against the windows, rattling the glass, and snow piled up so fast against the door, I wondered if we'd even be able to get out. Claire slid into the booth across from me without asking permission, and the folder she pushed toward me was expensive leather, the kind lawyers carry into courtrooms where millions of dollars hang in the balance. My coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago, but I wrapped my hands around the mug anyway, needing something to hold on to while this stranger turned my quiet, bitter evening into chaos. "You've got 30 seconds before I walk out," I said, not looking up from the documents. "Public records, my divorce filing, photos of my lodge, property valuations." My jaw tightened so hard I thought my teeth might crack. She'd researched me like I was a business acquisition, not a human being. "How did you even find me?" "Public records," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Your divorce was finalized 8 months ago. You own property free and clear. No criminal record. No debt. You're not connected to my family's world, which means my cousin can't buy you or threaten you." She paused, and for the first time, her composure cracked just slightly. "And you helped Judge Patricia Reeves's son last year. That means you're capable of doing the right thing even when it costs you something." I looked up then, really looked at her. Mid-20s, maybe pushing 30. Dark hair plastered to her face from melted snow. Makeup smudged under her eyes like she'd been crying or hadn't slept in days, probably both. But it was her hands that got me. They were shaking so hard the papers rattled, and she kept clenching them into fists like she could force them to be steady through sheer willpower. I knew that feeling. The feeling of your whole world crumbling and pretending you're fine while everything inside you screams. "Lady, I don't know what kind of game you're playing." "It's not a game." She opened the folder, spreading out documents with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times in courtrooms. Last, will and testament, financial statements, news articles about conservation land. And there, in black and white legal language that even I could understand, Claire Margaret Dennison must be legally married by 11:59 p.m. on the date of her 29th birthday, or all assets revert to Marcus James Dennison. My grandfather died 6 months ago. He left me everything: a $200 million conservation trust, 50,000 acres of protected wilderness in Wyoming, Montana, and Colorado. Land that mining companies have been trying to get their hands on for decades. His will has one condition. She pointed to the clause, her finger trembling. I have to be married by midnight tonight, or it all goes to my cousin Marcus, who's already negotiating with strip mining operations. I scanned the documents, recognized the Dennison name from news articles about land conservation battles, old money, powerful family, the kind of people who didn't normally walk into roadside diners begging strangers for help. So get married. You're rich and beautiful. Plenty of guys would line up for this. My fiancée was one of them. Her voice went hollow, and I saw something dark flash across her face. Pain. Betrayal. Until yesterday afternoon, when Marcus threatened to destroy his architecture firm if he went through with the wedding. Andrew lasted about 4 hours before he called it off. Told me he loved me, but not enough to lose everything. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turns out when you're about to inherit $200 million, you learn real fast who actually loves you and who just loves what you represent. Something in her voice reminded me of Jessica, my ex-wife, the day she told me she was leaving. That same hollow quality, like all the light had been sucked out of the world and you're just going through the motions of being alive. I knew that pain, had lived in it for 8 months. That's still not my problem, I said, but my voice had lost its edge. She leaned forward, and I caught the scent of expensive perfume mixed with fear sweat. What if I told you I could help with yours? She turned her tablet around, showing me another document. Legal filing. Jessica Carter versus Ethan Carter. Amendment to dissolution of marriage. Your ex-wife filed an amended lawsuit last week. She's claiming you hid the lodge's true value during the divorce proceedings. She wants half of everything, and her lawyers are good enough to win. My blood went ice cold. I'd gotten that notice 3 days ago, had been trying not to think about it, trying not to imagine losing the one thing I had left of my grandparents, the one piece of my life that still made sense. How the hell do you know about that? I'm an environmental lawyer. Research is what I do. She held my gaze, and for the first time, I saw past the fear to the sharp intelligence underneath. This woman was brilliant, capable, powerful in her own world, which made her desperation even more terrifying. If you remarry, it complicates her claim significantly, especially if your new wife has the legal resources to fight back. I'm offering you a partnership, Ethan. You give me the legitimacy I need to satisfy my grandfather's will. I give you legal protection and the resources to save your lodge. We help each other. I should have said no. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to walk away, to not get tangled up in rich people's problems, to protect what was left of my shattered ability to trust. But she was right about Jessica. The lawsuit could destroy me. And there was something in Claire's eyes that I recognized, something that called to the part of me that understood what it meant to fight for the last piece of your world that mattered. Even if I said yes, which I'm not saying, how does this work? You can't just walk into a courthouse at 11 p.m. and get married. Judge Patricia Reeves, you helped her son 2 years ago when he got into trouble. She owes you a favor. Claire had done her homework, knew things about my life I'd never told anyone. She can perform an emergency ceremony. We file the certificate electronically before midnight. It's legal, binding, and it saves both of us. I checked my watch. 11:02 p.m., 58 minutes. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't tell if it was adrenaline or terror or something else entirely. You're asking me to marry a complete stranger based on a story I can't verify in under an hour. I know. Her voice broke slightly, and a tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She wiped it away angrily, like crying was a weakness she couldn't afford. I know how insane this sounds, but Marcus has already won if I do nothing. He's already spent the inheritance in his mind, already sold off the first parcels of land. My grandfather spent his entire life protecting that wilderness, and I'm about to lose it all because I trusted the wrong person. She looked at me with those terrified eyes. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not asking you to pretend this is something it's not. I'm asking you to help me save something bigger than both of us. And in return, I'll help you save the one thing you have left of your family. The wind howled outside, and the lights in the diner flickered. Rita was pretending to wipe down the counter, but was clearly listening to every word. The clock on the wall ticked forward. 11:03. 57 minutes. I thought about my grandfather, who'd built that lodge with his own hands. About my grandmother, who'd taught me that land wasn't something you owned. It was something you protected for the people who came after you. About Jessica, who'd walked away the moment things got hard. About 8 months of lonely silence and bitter coffee, and wondering if I'd ever trust anyone again. If we do this, I heard myself say, and Claire's eyes went wide with hope. We do it my way. Money doesn't cut it. If this is going to look real, you come live at my lodge until this is settled. Marcus will investigate. We need to look like an actual married couple, not a business transaction. That means my house, my rules, and no lies between us, not even the uncomfortable ones. Agreed. She didn't even hesitate. And I mean it about the lies. You tell me the truth about everything. If there's more to this story, if Marcus is more dangerous than you're letting on, if this whole thing is going to blow up in my face, I need to know now. She was quiet for a long moment, and I saw her weighing something heavy. Finally, she whispered, Marcus called me this morning, told me if I went through with any wedding, he'd make sure I regretted embarrassing the family. He didn't specify how, but Marcus doesn't make empty threats. So there it was. Physical danger on top of everything else. I should have walked away right then. Instead, I stood up and grabbed my coat. Then we better move fast. My truck's out front. Claire stood, swaying slightly, like the weight of the moment had finally hit her. Why are you doing this? I looked at her. This stranger who'd walked into my life with impossible requests and terrified eyes, and told her the truth. Because 8 months ago, someone I loved chose money and comfort over fighting for something hard. I'm tired of living in a world where that's the smart choice. I held out my hand. Let's go prove that the crazy ones sometimes win. She took my hand, and her palm was ice cold against mine. We walked out into the blizzard together, and I knew with absolute certainty that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. The drive to Judge Patricia Reeves's house was 15 minutes of white-knuckle terror through a blizzard that wanted us dead. My truck's headlights barely cut through the sideways snow, and twice I felt the wheels lose traction on ice I couldn't see. Claire sat rigid in the passenger seat, checking her phone every 30 seconds like the clock might slow down if she watched it closely enough. 11:14 p.m., 46 minutes left. The heater blasted hot air that smelled like dust and old leather, and the radio crackled with static and weather warnings telling people to stay off the roads. We were the only idiots out here, racing toward a wedding that made no sense. "Will she actually do this?" Claire asked, her voice barely audible over the wind battering the truck. "Patricia owes me. Her son got into trouble 2 years ago. Serious trouble that could have destroyed his future. I helped him out. Never asked for anything in return." I gripped the steering wheel tighter as we hit another patch of ice. "She's a good person. She'll help if she can." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that stays private." I glanced at her. "See? No lies. But some things aren't mine to tell." She nodded, understanding the boundary. Then, quietly, "Thank you. For this. For all of it. Don't thank me yet. We haven't even gotten there." We pulled up to Patricia's modest 2-story house at 11:22 p.m. Warm light glowed in the windows, and I could see her Christmas tree through the front window, even though it was only late November. She answered the door in a bathrobe and reading glasses, holding a mystery novel, looking between us with sharp eyes that had presided over enough courthouse drama to spot trouble from a mile away. "Ethan Carter, it's 11:30 at night in a blizzard, and you're on my doorstep with a woman I've never met." She crossed her arms. "This better be important." "It is. I need a favor, Patricia. The one you said I could call in any time." Her expression shifted, recognition and resignation mixing together. "Come inside before you both freeze to death." We stepped into her warm living room that smelled like cinnamon candles and old books. Patricia's husband, Tom, appeared from the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, looking confused. Their teenage daughter, Emma, peeked around the corner, curious. "Patricia, this is Claire Dennison," I said. "We need you to marry us. Tonight. Right now." Patricia's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" Claire stepped forward, handing over the legal documents with practiced efficiency. "Time-sensitive inheritance clause. My grandfather's will requires me to be married by midnight on my 29th birthday, which is," she checked her phone, "37 minutes from now. Everything's legal and documented. I just need an officiant willing to perform an emergency ceremony." Patricia read quickly, her judge's mind processing the legalese. I saw the moment she understood the stakes. Her expression softened slightly. "This is legitimate. But I need to ask you both something, and I need honest answers." She looked at me first, then Claire. "Are you doing this of your own free will, understanding what marriage means under the law? Because I don't care what the paperwork says. If there's coercion, if either of you is being forced, this ends right now." "No coercion," Claire said firmly. "I asked him. He said yes. We both understand this is unconventional, but it's necessary, and it's our choice." Patricia turned to me. "Ethan, you're calling in your favor for this? Once I do this, we're even. You understand that?" I thought about the lodge, about Jessica's lawyers circling like vultures, about the way Claire had looked at me in that diner, desperate and brave and fighting for something she believed in. I understand. And yes, I'm sure. "Then let's do this before you both come to your senses." Patricia handed the documents to Tom. "Honey, you and Emma are witnesses. Go get the camera for documentation. Emma, grab your mother's good Bible from the study." The ceremony happened in Patricia's living room, standing in front of a fireplace with family photos on the mantel and a cat sleeping on the couch. No flowers, no music, just legal words spoken by a woman in a bathrobe who'd seen enough life to know that love doesn't always look like fairy tales. Do you, Ethan Michael Carter, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I looked at Claire, really looked at her, saw the fear and hope and desperate determination in her eyes. I do. Do you, Claire Margaret Dennison, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Her voice shook. I do. By the power vested in me by the state of Wyoming, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Patricia paused, a slight smile tugging at her lips. You may kiss the bride, and make it convincing. I'm putting my reputation on this. Claire stepped closer, and I caught that expensive perfume again. Different in this warm room, softer somehow. When our lips touched, it was supposed to be brief, performative, just checking a box. But there was heat there, unexpected, unwelcome, real. When we pulled apart, her eyes were wide, startled. Congratulations, Patricia said, though her tone suggested she thought we were both insane. Tom time-stamped the certificate. 11:43 p.m. Claire's lawyer, who she'd had on standby, filed the electronic marriage certificate at 11:47 p.m. At 11:51, her phone buzzed. Email confirmation. The trust was secured. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours, and maybe she had. It's done, she whispered. We did it. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt like I'd just jumped off a cliff and was still waiting to hit the ground. The drive back to the lodge took almost an hour through the storm, and by the time we arrived, it was past 1 in the morning. The main building sat dark against the white landscape, surrounded by pine trees bent under the weight of snow, and the only sound was the wind howling through the valley like something wild and lonely. Claire stared at it through the windshield, and I couldn't tell if the look on her face was relief or fear or something in between. It's beautiful, she said quietly. It's isolated, I corrected, killing the engine. Nearest town is 18 miles. Nearest neighbor is 4. Cell service is spotty on good days, non-existent during storms like this. If the roads stay like this, we could be snowed in for a week. I grabbed her single suitcase from the truck bed. You traveled light for someone entering a marriage. I left everything else at my hotel in Jackson. I wasn't sure you'd say yes. Wasn't sure I was doing the right thing. Are you? Sure. I mean? She looked at me, snowflakes catching in her dark hair. I'm sure I didn't have another choice. Whether it's right or wrong, we'll find out together. Inside, I turned on lights and cranked up the heat. The great room came alive. Massive stone fireplace, leather furniture worn soft from 3 generations of use, floor-to-ceiling windows that during daylight showed the Teton Range, but now just reflected our uncertain faces back at us. My photography covered the walls. Wolves moving through dawn mist. Elk against autumn gold. Mountain peaks catching first light. Claire stopped in front of a black and white print of a single tree surviving on a windswept ridge. You took these? Yeah, my grandfather taught me. Said if you're patient enough, the land tells you its secrets. They're extraordinary. She turned to me. You see beauty in harsh places. I didn't know what to say to that, so I changed the subject. Guest rooms upstairs, second door on the left. Bathrooms attached. Fresh sheets. Door locks from the inside. She caught the implication immediately. I'm not afraid of you, Ethan. Maybe you should be. You don't actually know me. For all you know, I'm the kind of man who takes advantage of desperate women. Are you? No. but you're trusting a stranger with your life based on public records and one conversation." She stepped closer, and I could see exhaustion in every line of her face. "I know you helped Patricia's son without asking for anything. I know you could have demanded cash tonight, but asked for partnership instead. I know you're angry at the world right now, maybe at yourself too, but you're not cruel. That's enough for me." I looked away, uncomfortable being seen that clearly. Rules still stand. Separate bedrooms. No lies between us, even uncomfortable ones. If Marcus comes after you, we present a united front. And this arrangement, it's temporary. Once the legal smoke clears, we can quietly annul it. No harm, no complications. How long until the trust becomes irrevocable? Your lawyer said 90 days if the marriage is still valid. After that, Marcus has no legal standing to challenge it. 90 days of pretending to be married. Something in her voice made me look at her. She was staring at her left hand, at the absence of a ring, at the reality of what we'd just done. "Could be worse," I said. "Could be stuck here with someone you actually hate." A small smile. "Do you hate me?" "Don't know you well enough to hate you." "But you hate what I represent. Marriage, commitment, promises that break." The accuracy of that hit harder than I expected. "Get some sleep, Claire. Tomorrow we figure out how to make this convincing." She picked up her suitcase, started toward the stairs, then paused. "Ethan, when you said yes tonight, in the diner, was it just about your ex-wife's lawsuit, or was there another reason?" I thought about lying, about keeping that wall up between us, but I'd made her promise no lies, which meant I owed her the same. 8 months ago, someone I loved chose comfort over fighting for something hard. She walked away the moment things got difficult. I'm tired of living in a world where that's the smart choice. I met her eyes. "You walked into a blizzard and asked a stranger for help rather than give up on something you believe in. That matters to me. Maybe more than it should." Her eyes went bright with unshed tears. "Thank you for seeing that." She went upstairs, and I heard the guest room door close. The house felt exactly as quiet as it always had, but somehow the silence was different now. Less empty, more waiting. I built a fire in the fireplace, watching flames catch and grow, thinking about wedding vows spoken in a stranger's living room and a kiss that had lasted half a second too long. Thinking about 90 days of pretending with a woman who looked at my photographs like they meant something. Thinking about Patricia's words, "You may kiss the bride." Outside, the blizzard raged on. Inside, the fire burned warm. And somewhere between those two extremes, I'd just bet everything I had left on a woman I'd known for less than 3 hours. 3 months suddenly felt like both forever and not nearly enough time to figure out if I'd just made the smartest or the stupidest decision of my life. But as I sat there watching snow pile up against the windows, trapping us together in this isolated place, I realized something that should have terrified me, but somehow didn't. I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to find out the answer, because finding out meant the arrangement would end. And some small, dangerous part of me was already wondering what would happen if we chose not to let it. The fire crackled, the wind howled, and upstairs, behind a locked door, my wife, my stranger, my partner, my impossible salvation, was trying to sleep in a house that wasn't hers, married to a man she didn't know, betting everything on 90 days of pretending. We'd started with desperation and a blizzard and a deadline that gave us no choice. Where we'd end up, only time would tell. But for tonight, we'd survived. We'd won. We'd said yes when the world expected us to give up. And sometimes, that's all you can do. Say yes to the impossible and see where it takes you. Even if it takes you to a remote Wyoming lodge with a bitter stranger who just became your husband because you needed one this night.